If I had one book, zero readers, and no audience, I would not start building a fancy website. I would not open a Shopify store. I would not start Facebook ads. And I would definitely not trying posting on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, whatever platform is out there to get people to try and buy my book. Instead, I would do this. I would try to get a person to go from being a complete stranger and turning it into a reader. And the ideal funnel for this is for it to go from a stranger to a reader to an email subscriber to reader again when I publish my next book. And that is also what we call an author funnel. So in this episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about marketing and about how a marketing funnel, or in this case, an author funnel, works for you guys, so that you can understand some of the core principles behind marketing and what to do when you don't have that many readers yet, or when maybe you have your first book out. How do I actually get strangers to find and buy my book? And how do I connect with them, make sure that they are loyal readers and keep showing up again if they actually like what I write? And today I'm going to show you exactly what to put in every stage of the author funnel so that you don't miss the most important ones. And stick around to the end, because at the end I will tell you what I would absolutely not spend any money on, especially if I'm early on within my author journey. And when I say early on in my author journey, that means that you haven't written that many books yet. If you have 10 books out already, then you should have an entirely different approach towards your marketing and building a funnel than if you only have one book out, or if you're just working on your first. And there is one part of traditional author business advice that I would absolutely not do if I only had one book out. But we will get to that later, okay? Because the biggest mistake isn't the fact that new authors don't market their books enough. It's that their marketing doesn't lead anywhere because they have no idea what they're doing. They don't understand the fundamental marketing principles. What is an author funnel? Let's make this super simple, okay? Imagine someone sees a post that you posted of your book on Instagram. And when they saw that photo, maybe they thought, oh my God, that is such a pretty book. I'm going to look that up later. And if you're lucky, they might even have followed you or commented on it, maybe even save the post for later. But you know what would happen after that? They will see a super funny video when someone is rearranging their refrigerator or rearranging their bookshelf. And you know what? The thought of buying your book, it's gone because they've forgotten it already. When we are using social media, when we're watching social media, we are often there to be entertained. We're not there to buy books. We're not there to do anything of that. So everything we see, each and every post, it only gets like a few seconds of the potential reader's attention. So it's so easy for them to forget what they were seeing, that you cannot count on the fact that just because they saw the post, that will lead to them becoming interested or buying your book, because most of the time they won't. The problem that a marketing funnel solves is what happens next. So what we are trying to do is not only get new readers to discover our books, but we want them to be aware that we exist and that our books exist. We want them to become interested in us as authors or our books. And then we want to convert them into readers. And after that, we also want to make them loyal so they keep coming back for more. But if you don't have a funnel, if you don't have a plan, and if you don't do this strategically, you have no way to contact the people who could become your best and most loyal readers. And a funnel will answer the question, what's next? When someone discovers you, what's next? They become interested. What's next after that? They buy your book. What's next after that? They finish the book. What's next after that? Maybe they sign up to your newsletter. Maybe they recommend it to a friend. This is what a funnel does. That you're trying to make it easy for the right reader to find your book. But why does only having one book change the strategy here? This is where it gets really interesting, okay? Because the funnel I would build if I only have one book is very different from the funnel I would, if I had 10 romance novels out, I would have a completely different strategy than I have now, because right now, at the moment of filming this, I only have one romance novel out. So what kind of strategy do I have? Because the fact is, like, if I have multiple books, then it's okay for me to lose money on book 1 because I will earn back the money when the person is reading book 3 or book 4 or whatever it is. Like if we only have or if we have multiple books out, then it's okay for us to lose money at the beginning of the buying journey. But if I only have one book out, then this will be a lot harder because it's really hard to, like, if I pay for ads to get people to buy my book, then all the money I'm spending on ads are added on top of the fees that I've already paid for my editor, cover designer, translations, and stuff like that, which means that it will be super hard to break even if I spend a lot of money on advertising. But if I have multiple books in a series, so let's say these are my series, and yeah, it's still the same book here, but if I have multiple books, then maybe it's okay that getting in one new reader costs me, say, $20, but I also know that 50% who finished the first book will read the next book, and out of those, 75% will move on to book 3, and so forth. So that is why the math gets a little bit complicated and why the strategy differs depending on if you only have one book out or multiple books. And the thing is, written word media, the written word media 2025 set actually shows this larger pattern very clearly. The fact that high earning indie authors, they tend to have bigger catalogs, often in series, and they also have like established email lists, multiple marketing systems, all working together. And that is the goal that we're trying to create in the long run. But the fact is, we can't have the same framework if we only have one book out, because then we're at a completely different level. So you need to think about like where in your author journey you are right now. Because if you only have one book out, of course you want to start getting the sales out there, your book out there. But one of your primary focuses is probably to write more books, because in the long run, that is what will be more valuable for you long term, if your goal is to be someone who lives off of their writing, for example. I don't know what your goal is personally, so like, you know. And another important thing when we look at the high earning in the authors is the fact that they didn't start out where they are today. They had to work really hard to get there. They had to write all those books. They had to iterate their author funnel along the way. And so are we going to do on with our journey as well. But when you're starting out, you still need to know where to start. And when you start, the first step is to actually know who your reader is before you build anything, okay? This is super important because if you're trying to sell to the wrong person, you'll work for nothing. So this is super important. Don't skip this. And when you're figuring out who your target reader is, you need to ask yourself, who is this book for? And I write in multiple genres. So for me, this both very, very important, but also a little bit complicated because I write romance novels, I write dark academia, I write fantasy, I write nonfiction. And not everyone loves all of those genres as one. So, you know, and when I ask myself, who is this book for? I can't say anyone from 18 to 65 women. That is too broad. That is way, way, way too broad. So instead, I would try to look at it and like here in Sweden, I know that a lot of people who are between 35 and 55 would love to read this genre. But for the international market, maybe it would be a little bit different. Maybe I would have to tweak who is my target audience there. And when I try to find out who my target reader is, I will often ask myself these questions. What does the reader already love? What emotional experience is the reader looking for? What books are they already buying? I would also try to figure out like what is something that I know stops them mid-scroll and be like, oh my gosh, that is a book for me. Me personally, I spend a lot of time on Book Talk. I spend a lot of time on Bookstagram. And whenever I find a book that seems interesting, maybe it is someone doing a book review of an interesting book, or maybe I see a promotion post that triggers my interest. Whenever that happens, I save the post for later because that is very interesting. That is a post I can learn from and see like what triggered my interest here. And How can I use what I learned from that to translate to me promoting this book, for example? So one way that I do is I really, really love those posts where you have arrows with the tropes around the book. So that is a post that I usually create for my own books, because I know that that is something that I really love as a potential reader for a book. So I wouldn't just go out there describing my book as contemporary romance novel. That says nothing about the book. And honestly, I wouldn't buy a book based on that. Instead, I would say something like, this is a heartwarming Amsterdam romance about a woman who's lost faith in both love and her dream of becoming author. 5 friendship dates begin changing both. Like, that is a sales pitch or whatever you call it that would actually make me interested in buying a book. So now we're getting somewhere. Now I know that maybe my potential target audience, they love stories about starting over, or maybe they love stories that has something to do with travel, a small adventure. Maybe they love the fact that main character is very creative. There are a lot of things that can trigger a potential reader to fall in love with this kind of story. You need to try and figure out what those things are for your story. Remember that we're not trying to market to any reader. We're trying to market to a very specific niche of readers. This matters because if the wrong person enters the top of your funnel, the entire funnel gets worse. 10,000 fantasy readers, it doesn't matter if I reach 10,000 fantasy readers, they won't love my contemporary romance novel. I'm sorry, but they won't. That is not the book they're looking for. There are no dragons in it, so they will be very disappointed. Step 2 is discovery. How do we get people to actually discover the book? And for different people, different strategies work best here. I'm not one of those people who advertise, one size fits all. I think it's different for each and every single one of us. So you need to figure out where you can actually get people to discover your book for you. Maybe it's on YouTube, maybe it's on Substack, maybe it's on Instagram, TikTok, Reddit. I don't know. You need to figure this out. But one thing you can ask yourself is, where can I create content on a regular basis and post consistently over time? So when I'm starting out, especially if I'm not a content creator or a marketer like I am myself. So for me, you can't look at what I'm doing because I love creating content. I love marketing. I also love writing books. So for me, creating TikToks, Instagrams, YouTubes, having a podcast, having a website, multiple websites, like all of those things are fairly easy for me and a lot of fun. I really love creating stuff. But for you, maybe you really, really, you enjoy taking photos. Then Instagram might be the place for you to be. Or you like creating short form videos. Then you have YouTube Shorts, you have Instagram Reels, or you have TikTok. Also here, it depends on where your target audience hangs out. Are you writing for a younger audience? Then of course TikTok is a better choice than Facebook. Yes, I'm sorry, but that is the way it is. So maybe you will have to try and learn to create videos. I always recommend that when you're starting out and finding your discovery channel, you start by only trying to master one channel, just one. It could be long form videos like this on YouTube if you want to do that, but try and master one channel and only that to begin with. And once you're comfortable with that and also know that you can post consistently, then you might add another. On top of your funnel, you will have to work with your emails, for example. But we'll get to that later in this video. So now I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. And one thing you have to know is there is no universal right platform for one author, but there is a universal wrong strategy. And that is if you're trying to do everything badly because somebody on the internet told you that authors needs to be everywhere. No, you don't have to be everywhere. You need to find your place to be. And like if you don't like to create content, for example, then maybe the place to be is via podcast or websites, or maybe you write articles for the newspaper. I don't know. You will have to figure this out yourself. And another place that people get stuck on is asking themselves, what do I post? I know this can be hard, but it really doesn't have to be. I can make an entire video about what you can post on social media. if you want me to do that, but it doesn't have to be too hard. One thing that you cannot post is "buy my book, come buy my book." If you only post that, that is not interesting for anyone. That is why we have paid ads. You have to try and give the potential reader something in each and every single post. Something that I often recommend is the 80-20 principle, which means that 80% of the content is you giving value to the potential reader or the person viewing your post or the person you're creating for. 20% of the time, it's okay for you to actually promote your own work, ask them to sign up for a newsletter, or ask them to buy a book or do promo posts of some kind. This is a really important balance, because when people start following you online, for example, the thing you're trying to cultivate there is building a relationship with your potential reader. So it's better for you to post about other books in the genre that you've read and tell them why you like it. Or maybe you share posts about your writing process. That gives them an insight to you as an author. Or maybe you tell them about some of the themes that you keep on coming back to, like starting over, or like me, I often places I've traveled to or places I've lived in abroad. So it's some sort of expat theme when it comes to my romance novels. And that is something that I can talk about on my Instagram account, for example. The fact that I've lived in Amsterdam, or the fact that I've lived in China, that could be of value to a potential reader, and it adds depth to our relationship. Step 3 is the fact that you should not just send everyone, like when they're actually interested, don't send everyone straight to the sales channel. Don't send them everyone to Amazon, for example. Why? Because you have no way to contact them afterward. And this is probably one of the most important steps of the entire funnel. Because suppose I make a video and say 10,000 people watch it. Out of those 10,000 people, maybe 200 think that my romance novel that I take as an example sounds interesting. If the only call to action that I have is go buy my book, then maybe a few might go and buy it. And yeah, sure, that's great. After that, everyone will disappear. I have no way to contact them. I don't know if they've finished the book. I don't know what they think about the book. And that's not great. But if instead my call to action every now and then is for them to sign up to my newsletter, I have a way to contact people. And this is actually great, because this means that I have a way to contact people, especially people who are thinking about, I'm not sure if I'm going to buy the book yet. I'm interested, but I'm not at the tipping point where I know this book is for me yet. So if I get people to sign up to my newsletter, I have a way to contact them, but I also have a way to share behind the scenes and create a lot deeper relationship with the potential reader. What I'm trying to say is there are two paths here. The one path is ready now, sure, go buy the book. The other path is interested but not ready, then join my world. Sign up to my newsletter. This distinction is incredibly important, because not everyone who likes the idea of your book is ready to spend money on it today. They might be reading something else, waiting for payday, not sure about it yet, waiting for reviews, or interested in the genre but not yet ready to commit. And this is also one of the reasons why we're trying to build a funnel where we keep on reminding people of the fact that we exist as authors, but also that our books exist. Because as long as we keep on talking to them, new people will enter our funnels, which means that new people have the potential to discover the universes of books that we are creating. But how do I get people to sign up to my newsletter, you wonder? This is when we enter step 4, which is to create a reader magnet. So if I only had one book, I would keep it very simple with my reader magnet. Either I would create a short story that takes place in the same universe as my book, or I would give away the first 3 chapters of the book. Super simple, super easy. I would not create a scene that is not part of the book. And the reason why is because the person who signs up for my newsletter probably hasn't read the book, so they don't want a bonus chapter yet. They are reading the free to understand if they're ready, if they should commit, if the book sounds interesting enough for them to actually read. So this is very important for you to understand. Like, at this point when we only have one book out, we want as many people as possible to discover us as authors. So we're like, whatever freebie you create, it has to give value and be able to stand on its own to create value. Later, when you have multiple books or series, or when someone has finished your book, then it's fine to have a bonus chapter or whatever it is. But that is something put with a QR code at the end of your book. You don't need to have it when they sign up for your newsletter. Or maybe you send it out to the people who already follow your newsletter because you know that a percentage of them has bought the book. But instead, if you write nonfiction, then maybe it is a workbook that you give away as a freebie. But this also, if you written one book, should be able to stand on its own at the beginning. Written Word Media 2025's research ranked a reader magnet among the strongest marketing tactics for authors, particularly to feed their email list. And having a good email list is also one of the things that most of the high-earning authors have. And if you haven't watched the video where I talk about the insights from that survey, I will link it in the description box. Okay, so let's move on to step number 5, which is creating a landing page. So if I want people to go from my Instagram to sign up for my newsletter, for example, I need to have a landing page where they easily can sign up for it. And a mistake that I see some authors making, and I get that they make it because, I've been young and new to this too. But sometimes when they create a landing page, they will have pictures of their cats, they will have a lot of text, they will have all kinds of things on the landing page that is irrelevant to the newsletter. The newsletter will be like, if someone scrolls for ages, and it will be at the bottom. No. One principle that we have in marketing is that you can only have one call to action. You can't have 3 things that you want someone to do. But also on a landing page has one purpose. So if you want someone to sign up for your newsletter on that landing page, you can't have links for them to buy your book at the same page. That is a different landing page for that. If you want to have a page with all your books where they can buy, that is a separate page that you create. Don't try to push everything into the same page because we have such a short attention span that you need to have a focused landing page, a title, a short text about the freebie that they're getting, maybe a snippet about what they will get if they sign up for your newsletter, then the field where they can sign up for it, and a button, let me subscribe, or whatever the call to action is. And now that they've done that, I want you to create an email sequence. And an email sequence is a multiple, like 4 automated emails that you send. So the first one will be sent directly when someone signs up for your newsletter, maybe the second one after a few days, and the third one after a few days, and so forth. The reason why we do this is because we want to cultivate the relationship whilst the lead is still warm, and that means that while they still remember that they signed up for a new, because sometimes I see authors that has a letter, you sign up for it, and they don't send an email for a year. So when you finally get an email from them, you'll be like, no, I didn't sign up for this, because you've forgotten about it. So this is why you should have an email sequence. And I'm going to give you an example of one that you can copy and use for yourself. So in the first email, that is the delivery email. This is where you deliver what you promised that you're going to give away in the freebie. So, for example, on my Substack, I give away a short story that is connected to my dark academia books that I write. So that is one of the things that you get if you sign up for my newsletter. And that is one of the freebies that is included straight away when you. And email number 2 is the one where we want to connect with the potential reader. And in this email, maybe you explain why you write the kind of stories that you do. Don't give them the entire autobiography. Just give them something that is valuable and meaningful to the kind of books that you write. So an example that I could do, but I haven't, is to write something about why I am obsessed with writing stories about starting over. And at this point, you don't want to try and sell any books yet. That comes a lot later, okay? Email number 3, you want to give them more experience. What do I mean by this? Maybe you will give them an excerpt from your book or your working program. Maybe you give them book recommendations of books that you love and that inspired your writing. Maybe you have a discussion about different tropes or behind the scenes locations that you visited when you did research for the book. Maybe you have a character introduction. This is when we can start getting a little bit deeper into what we're actually writing, because they are interested in what you're writing. And email number 4 is the invite email. Now you introduce the book. It could be something like, if you enjoy the atmosphere of the free story, a new chapter by the canal explores the same themes of Amsterdam, creative dreams, and unexpected love. And then you have one call to action. And in this example, that is a fake example, so don't think that you're going to get exactly that when you sign up for my newsletter. But then it would be one call to action, and that could be read the book, and maybe it's a link to the Amazon page. And at this stage of the funnel, now we're actually getting to the sales part. I know you've done a lot of work beforehand, so you've been waiting for this. A question I often get from writers is, why is my book not selling? And if you've done all the work before, like getting people to discover your book, getting them interested, but it's not converting, then you need to take a step back and think about, ask yourself, why? Maybe you don't have a cover that is specific enough to the genre you're writing. And I know this is really hard to hear because we are creative people who's put our soul into these books, but you still need a professional looking book because the reader will judge the book by its cover. I'm sorry, but we do. We don't have time to read a book that has a cover that looks like it's supposed to be in a different genre, for example. Maybe your landing page is not clear enough. Or maybe it's the fact that you don't have any reviews yet. Maybe it's an inappropriate pricing. I don't know. But look at all these things and make sure that they are in line with other books. Another question that sometimes shows up is, should I send people to my own store? And at this point of your writing career, if you only have one book out, the answer is no. You should be focusing on getting people on your newsletter and writing more books. So sure, like you should do some social media, of course. You should try and get as many people as possible on your newsletter, but you should focus on writing more books. When you have multiple books out and you already have a readership, you already know that people are interested, then yeah, make sure to have your own online shop because you will make a lot more money back on that. You can send signed copies of your books. Maybe you can do special edition and stuff like that. But that comes later in the author journey, not at this point. Don't spend focus and time and energy on things that don't give you the leverage that you need, or like, yeah. And at this point of the journey, you should focus on writing. I'm sorry. And the same thing goes for paid ads. Sure, you can experiment a little bit, especially around your release, but don't spend a bunch of money on ads on Facebook or Amazon or whatever. Because if you if I spend a lot of money in getting people to buy my one book, but then I don't have any more books out and it's going to be another year before I publish another book, then they will probably have forgotten about me. And that's a very worthy sales funnel. But if I have multiple books out, then it's great that I spend a lot of money on them getting the first book, or I can do a free giveaway of the first book and stuff like that. But that scenario is an entire different video, and this video is already getting long enough, so I will talk about that strategy in another video. And now the last step is probably the most forgotten step of the entire funnel, and that happens when when someone has already read your book. What happens then? This is a golden opportunity for you to actually get someone to do something for you. So if someone reads my book and they loved it, at the end of the book, I can actually have action where I tell them to go and give the book a review on Goodreads. Or maybe I have a QR code where they can sign up for my newsletter. You will have to decide, but once again, you can only have one call to action per book at the end of the book. But this is something that you want to do to create a loyal readership. And once again, you need to ask yourself, do I need more reviews at this point in my author journey, or do I need to build up my email list? My guess is that you want to build up your email list at this point, but this is so underrated. I don't see many authors actually using this. But when someone finished a book, and especially if they loved it, they are more inclined to wanting to share that with other people. And the next step is to ask people review. And this is something you can do if you have an email list. So let's say that I have a QR code that gets people to sign up for my newsletter at the end of the book. When I have that and I know that people are reading, every now and then in my newsletter, I will ask people that has read my books to leave a review. And yes, it is okay to remind them every now and then. Like, don't put it in every one of your emails, but give them a gentle reminder, because reviews make such a big difference as social proof when people are deciding where to buy a book. So having a strategy to get reviews is super important. I actually made a video about how you can get your first 25 reviews. So if you've missed that one, you should watch it next. And now that you have everything set up, you need to have a plan to keep people interested until you publish book 2. And when you publish book 2, until you publish book 3, and so forth. But how do you do that, you wonder? The job is to keep the relationship alive. I often sign up for other authors' newsletter, and some of them I keep because they inspire me, so that I've realized that, oh my gosh, that is such a great way to talk about how the author came up with the world for that book. So I get inspired on what to write in my own newsletter. That is something that you can do too. I want you to have a plan so that you send out emails on a regular basis. It could be once a week, once every second week, or once a month. You decide what is sustainable for you. I know that it's hard to keep up an email list. It is for me too, but I keep on trying and I keep on improving. And when you write your email list, talk about things that are connected to the experience that they originally signed up for. What you're writing, books you're enjoying, behind the scenes decisions, themes, characters, early excerpts, research, cover choices, and the launch process. Eventually, that will lead up to you in a natural way talking about the fact that book 2 is out, or asking people to sign up to become an ARC reader of book 2. And this is where everything starts to change, because once you have this author funnel set up for book 2, you already have readers. You already have people excited about your next book. That is such a great headway. And you will keep on building this with each and every single book that you launch. So let's go through the entire funnel so that you understand how you can build it step by step, okay? Step 1 is discovery, and channels I would use for that are YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, podcasts, collaborations, wherever your reader already exists. Step 2 is creating interest. And you do this by creating reader-centered content. Also by having a clear book promise and giving them a reason to care. Step 3, here there are 2 different paths. One path for people who already want to buy the book, and then for them, the call to action is just to buy the book. So they will skip one step. And for other people, it would be for them to sign up for your newsletter. They are interested, but they're not yet ready. So you invite them to your world. Step 4 is the email list. So for the people who bought the book, maybe you have the email sign up at the end of the book with the about the author and all of those pages that you can create there. Or maybe you have a reader magnet or something that you deliver, connect, and give value. Invite them to want to be interested in more. And step 5 is making sure that the book is correctly packaged, that it is as compelling as it possibly can be, with a great cover, great blurb, great packaging. Also make it easy for them to purchase it, where the reader usually buys the books. If it's a genre that is super popular in KU, then you should be in KU. If it's a genre that is super popular wide, then it should be wide. You need to make the research to understand where your book fits. After that, you want to build a relationship by sending emails consequently over time. And the numbers I want you to track in each of these steps are In discovery, how many people reaches my content. With interest, how many people clicks and how many people bought your book. After that, I want you to check how many people actually reviewed your book. That is how you can track each and every single step of the sales funnel. So to wrap this up, I want you to take away, in this video, I want you to take away the fact that you don't need to have 10 books out already. You don't need to have a big marketing team behind you. What you need is this. One clear reader. You need to understand who your target reader is. Give the reader a good reason to join your email list, and a professionally presented book. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you soon. Bye.